Macron to deploy troops to Greenland. Trump claims Ukraine holds up peace deal, not Russia. And EU to cut price cap on Russian oil starting February 1st. The latest news next. Donald Trump said that Ukraine, not Russia, is holding up a potential peace deal, according to an interview with Trump given to Reuters. Quote, "I think he is ready to make a deal," Trump said of the Russian dictator. "I think Ukraine is less ready to make a deal." Asked why US-led negotiations have so far failed to resolve Europe's largest conflict since World War II, Donald Trump replied, Zelensky. As Reuters notes, Trump's remarks point to a renewed sense of frustration with the Ukrainian leader. Relations between the two presidents have long been volatile, although their interaction appeared to improve during the first year of Trump's return to office. Trump also said he was unaware of any possible future trip by U.S. Special Envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to Moscow, which had earlier been reported by Bloomberg. When asked whether he would meet Volodymyr Zelensky at the World Economic Forum in Davos next week, Trump said he would, but suggested that no concrete plans were in place yet. "I would if he is there," Trump said. "I'm going to be there." Asked why he believed Zelensky was holding back on negotiations, Trump did not elaborate, saying only, "I just think he is, having a hard time getting there." Reuters recalled that Zelensky has publicly ruled out any territorial concessions to Moscow, stating that under Ukrainian's constitution, Kiev has no right to give up any part of its territory. Ukraine is bleeding. Ukraine has been bleeding for years now. Cities destroyed, children killed, families torn apart, millions displaced, all because Russia chose war, occupation and terror. Ukraine has said again and again that it wants peace, real peace, not a fake deal built on surrender, not peace at the price of erased cities and stolen land, not peace that rewards mass murder and aggression. And in the middle of this, Donald Trump has the nerve to say this, to claim that Ukraine, the country being invaded, bombed and butchered, is the one holding up peace, to suggest that Putin is ready to make a deal while Ukraine somehow isn't. Are you serious? Have you completely lost touch with reality? Russia started this war. Russia continues this war. Russia is the one launching missiles, killing civilians, torturing prisoners, deporting children, and occupying territory by force. Yet somehow the pressure is aimed at Ukraine, at Zelensky, at the people who are defending their homes. Where is the pressure on Putin? Where are the demands that Russia withdraw its troops? Where is the accountability for war crimes? Where is the recognition that territorial concessions are not diplomacy but legalized robbery? Ukraine is not having a hard time getting there. Ukraine is refusing to legitimize aggression. Ukraine is refusing to sign away its own land and people just so Western politicians can declare a convenient peace and move on. That is not stubbornness. That is sovereignty. That is the basic principle of international law. Blaming Zelensky for failed negotiations is obscene. It flips victim and aggressor on their heads. It sends a clear message to every dictator on the planet: invade, kill enough people, wait long enough, and eventually someone in the West will pressure the victim to give up. And let's be clear, peace without justice is not peace. A deal that rewards Russia for invasion is not peace. It is a pause before the next war. Ukraine wants peace more than anyone because Ukrainians are the ones dying. But peace does not mean capitulation. And if Trump truly wants peace, then the question isn't why Ukraine wants surrender. It's why Russia isn't being forced to stop. The European Union will lower the price cap on Russian oil to $44.1 per barrel on February 1st, according to the EU Council. In early December 2022, the G7 countries as well as Australia and the EU imposed price caps on Russian oil, setting a maximum level of $60 per barrel. In February 2023, these countries introduced a new price cap on Russian petroleum products, $100 for diesel fuel and $45 for various lubricants. In September 2025, the price cap was lowered to $47.6 per barrel, and from February 1st, 2026, the price cap on Russian oil will be $44.1 per barrel. The restrictions prohibit the provision of transport, insurance, and financial services for the supply of Russian oil sold above the set limit. The EU emphasizes that the mechanism will be reviewed, taking into account market conditions and the effectiveness of restrictive measures. Price cap on Russian oil. The price cap on Russian oil sets the maximum price at which countries can buy it from Russia. Transport and insurance companies will not be able to provide their services for transactions where the price of oil exceeds the limit. Since December 2022, the G7 countries have had a cap of $60 per barrel. The EU price cap will be automatically reviewed at least twice a year, depending on market prices. It will be set based on the average oil price over the last 3 months, minus 15%. To maintain oil exports, Russia can either lower oil prices or use the so-called shadow fleet. These may be all tankers that are not subject to strict control, tankers registered in countries with soft transportation rules, such as Panama or Liberia. Russia uses the tanker fleets of Greece, Malta and Cyprus to transport oil. On July 18, 2025, the EU adopted the 18th package of sanctions against Russia, according to which the maximum price for Russian oil was reduced from $60 to $47.6 per barrel. The decision came into force on September 3rd. In addition, an automatic and dynamic mechanism for setting future price limits was introduced. The price cap must be 15% lower than the average market price for Urals crude oil for the previous reporting period. In addition, Canada also lowered the price cap on Russian oil by 12%. France has announced its readiness to take part in joint NATO exercises in Greenland organized by Denmark, with the first units already deployed to the exercise area, according to a post by French President Emmanuel Macron on X. French President Emmanuel Macron announced that France will participate in joint military exercises organized by Denmark in Greenland. According to Macron, the operation named Arctic Endurance has already begun, with the first French units en route to the exercise area. Objectives and scope. Macron said France's participation aims to strengthen cooperation with NATO allies and enhance security in the Arctic region. Additional contingents are expected to arrive after the initial deployment, allowing for comprehensive training across a range of climatic and tactical conditions. Context and significance. The exercises come amid growing competition for influence in the Arctic and the need to demonstrate NATO's readiness for coordinated action. France emphasized the importance of close allied coordination and preparedness to protect strategically significant territories in northern latitudes. Why Greenland became a focal point? Following a recent operation in Venezuela, US President Donald Trump has again turned attention to Greenland, signaling an intent to bring the island within the United States' sphere of influence. Greenland, the world's largest island off the coast of Canada, remains strategically important despite a population of about 56,000. Historically, it hosted US military facilities, including nuclear-related sites. Today, the Pituffik Space Base remains operational for space surveillance. Trump has urged that Greenland should come under US control to host the Golden Dome missile defense system, warning that without urgent action, the island could fall under Russian or Chinese influence. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller has said Greenland should become part of the US national security system and did not rule out the use of force. China has sharply condemned the US interest in Greenland, urging Washington not to turn other states into instruments of its geopolitical aims. Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen reiterated that Greenland is not for sale and that its people will decide their own future. Greenland's Prime Minister has stated there is broad public support for keeping the island under Greenlandic control, a position Copenhagen says remains unchanged. The Pentagon is redeploying an aircraft carrier strike group from the South China Sea to the area of responsibility of US Central Command, which includes the Middle East, News Nation reports. According to media reports, the vessels heading toward the shores of the Middle East include the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln a strike submarine and other ships. The redeployment of the group may take about a week. The Pentagon ordered the redeployment of the Korea group amid rising tensions between Washington and Tehran. Mass rallies are taking place in Iran, and US President Donald Trump has repeatedly threatened the authorities of the Islamic Republic with a series of strikes if they continue to suppress demonstrations. What preceded this? Earlier, Trump said that the killing of protesters in Iran had stopped. Asked whether this meant abandoning possible military action against Iran, the US president said Washington would continue to monitor developments. The United States could not launch a military operation against Iran because it lacked the necessary military capabilities in the Middle East. Sources said the Pentagon had not planned any troop or equipment movements to the region. A US attack is possible against the backdrop of large-scale protests raging in Iran since December 28. Unrest caused by economic problems quickly escalated into political rallies and clashes with security forces. More than 12,000 people may have been killed during the suppression of the protests. At the same time, Trump threatened Iran if the regime began killing civilians and later publicly called on Iranians to continue anti-government protests, seize institutions, and said that assistance to protesters was already on its way. That's all for today. Thanks for watching this video. Support Ukraine, like and subscribe.